Hey guys, just hold for a second. So, hi guys.
Hey.
Here we are, kidnapped Marin from the hospital, right? Took her home for a break, right? She's moving from one place to another place in a rehabilitation. So, just thought I'd kidnap her for a couple of hours. Anyway, we had a bit of a change today with this move. And today I wanted to make a video. Now, this is going to be part 9 on YouTube, The Witness, okay, of the most important information to every human being on earth. This particular show here, or this particular episode here, we're going to go into some very deep things about parasites. I've talked to you a lot about parasites, okay, but I'm going to take a whole different swing on this. That's why you all need to pay attention. First of all, we're talking about body snatchers and parasites coming into our spine. Okay, and this being disclosed by a person that's a UFO disclosure or whistleblower. Okay, this has been on some of the front page of the papers, so it's going to become common knowledge. Parasites, we see many documents coming out everywhere where cancer and MS is parasites. Let me explain something to you, okay? Many veterinarians know this, that dogs have parasites, right? And they often have cancer, which is in fact parasites, and they treat them with worming tablets. Okay, and one of those worming tablets cures them. So a guy by the name of Joe Tippins, back in 2016, he had cancer and only given a few weeks left to live. And he was infested with cancer, with lung cancer, throat cancer, and down through his organs in 5 different places. He had stage 4 cancer with only weeks left to live. You can read about Joe Tippins on Google. There's no secrets about this. So he got advice from a vet about these pills for worming to kill parasites. So he followed the instructions with these pills and cured himself. There's a lot of information about this, and other people doing this and also curing cancer for the same reason, because it cures parasites and kills parasites. Now, there's a lot of other information coming out about MS orders with the same type of parasites, where people also say it can be treated the same way. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but there's a lot of information coming out about this. Why don't you consider something, okay? And I'm just asking you to consider something. If you go back in the time and see how many people had cancer in the 60s, right? Well, there was barely no such recording. Okay, and what did we used to take? We used to take worming tablets all the time. Back in the 60s and the 70s, we took worming tablets all the time. That's kind of like been eliminated today. And since that's been eliminated, and it'll eliminate more than ever in global history, when you think about it, now we've got cancer going out 18 times more than only 25 years ago. So we have more cancer and more gene defects and more MS breakdowns than ever in history, because people stopped taking worming tablets, didn't they, at the same time? Because you can follow this. There's no misinformation about anything medical here. It's just a proven fact, right? A rock solid fact. So the actual fact is, if we go into ancient history, we can also see that the indigenous people used to take certain molecules, certain seeds. They never got any parasites whatsoever. Never had cancer, never had MS disorders or any of these things. They never had such things as parasites. Now, I can go really deep with this, but you can see in the marketing strategy from 300 years ago how we took these things away from people and structured certain systems, right? And then we ended up taking drugs like worming tablets that did stop parasites when we were starting to create them. Now, today, we know that GMO food on mainstream media, right, as I've given to you in the last video, right, they said on mainstream media in the Nordic they had to take an apple off the line that had parasites in it and made by a company by Bill Gates. We know that pork that is made as clone food, and I want you to listen, in Denmark they kill more than 50 million porks a year. One of the biggest pork distributors in the world. All their food is cloning because they don't have the farming property to do this. When we first saw about cloning 40 years ago, animal cloning, 30 or 40 years ago, right? We know that they were able to create clones fully grown in 3 months. Now, you know, in my opinion, with the sophisticated knowledge we've got today, that could be faster for all we know. But we know one thing for sure, that in Denmark, they work on cloning, which is like hybrid food, it's GMO food. And we know that pork all over the world has been declared in many places and seen under a microscope, they have parasites. I know for a fact, with much information all over the world, that all GMO food shows parasites because we can see that in anything that's cloned. And anything that's cloned is created from stem cells, not organically. Stem cell research. And what's our biology is all about? Stem cells. And our cells, cellulars, working on reverse psychology and corruption, coercion, collusion. And that's what parasites are. You know, when you think psychologically and mentally in 5 senses, it's negative fields, and your body starts going corruption, coercion, collusion, and become parasites. You have 350 million body cells that die every day, and a lot of them turns into parasites with defective genes. So they work in corruption, right? Coercion, collusion. So when they're supposed to be rejected out of the body, like through your fingernails and that, right? That's dead blood, dead DNA. Your hair and stuff, right? What's happening is a lot of body cells are staying in your body and becoming like zombies and working corruption, coercion, collusion with a personality and work against your system. We can prove that in mental health research, okay, and gene defects and cancer research. And you know, cancer, right? I mean, basically, just by looking at a dog, and when the dog gets cancer and these parasites, right, a worming tablet can kill it, right? And that's happening to people today, the same thing. Now, you can't tell me the scientists don't know that. You can't tell me that they're inverted, or are they that stupid? Because in my opinion, I want to tell you something. When the whole world thinks that we're moving fast, we're moving forward with technology and the AI world, you're actually becoming more inverted, believe it or not, with a high IQ. The more you go into this materialistic things and depend on this, the more inverted you become. Because when you go the other way, when you think the Aborigines are backwards, I want you to think about something. It's written on all your documents that they are savages, right? They're hunter-gatherers. When you start to understand the truth about black people all over the world, right, and the indigenous people, let me explain something to you. The Australian Aboriginals, right, was where paradise was, where the biggest cities and the oldest cities are buried in the sand, that had millions of people, 24 different civilizations here. They were protecting the Great Flood of Noah. We all come from here because from there they come into the Maoris, the Palm Islanders, and across into the Hawaiians and Easter Island when it used to be a big land there. So the Easter Island people that we don't know nothing about comes from the Aboriginals, and they lie to you all the time. They know that. They just lie to you. That's why Area 51 sits in Pine Gap, Australia, and it's the most suppressed secrets in the world is in this area, where NASA and NSA control their whole facilities from. So in our bloodline, it goes across to the Hawaiians and the Easter Islands, and then over to the Mayans. And the Mayans is the first civilization in the Southern Americas. Their soil is the richest soil in the world that they created with their natural organic motor skills and their primal state and their social engineered, that was engineered in their biological system with organic motor skills, right? And they were so social, they worked together and never hated one another, don't even know what aggression is, have no idea what wars are or anything like this. They've never been savages. They have a communication with Mother Nature, and they can move the earth and they can change the soil, and the soil can feed them the right molecules. And they used to live to be 1,000 years old. If you go into history, right, let me tell you something about giants. There were giants that lived to be 1,000 years old back then, and people don't even realize that. Then they went up to become the Indians, right? They moved up from the South Americans across Alaska, over to Greenland and into the Nordic. And into the Nordic, right, they went down into become Africans again, right? And also the Asians, and filled the whole population in. And we all come all the way back to the Australian Aboriginals, right? From another catalysm event. Because they come from another timeline where Atlantis used to be in the cradle of life that began in Africa, in the Sahara Desert. And we know the eyes there from Atlantis and the same catalysm event. And it always starts the same way with the Adam and Eve story, right? Man and woman, right? And 2 sons, and one kills the other every single time, okay? And the first Western white civilization born by the serpents, right? A lot of people don't know about the serpents, right? Okay, Thor the thunder god, okay, it all begins like this with these serpents, which is the Rel civilization. The Rel civilization, the fallen angels, have been here for millions of years and always reset things. And the Rel peoples are fallen angels. They can't get out of here, never will. They create everything with modern technology. They did that with the Atlantis and also with flying saucers. But they can't get out of here because they can't get back to where they come from. But they can go to other solar system through their flying saucers, right? Or do they use a Stargate system? But the Rel people lives underground. So Thor the thunder god was first seen and first known in our history in Iceland. Iceland, they had a great big hole, and they said a big man, there's a great big giant, who was something like 100 feet to 100 meters tall. He used to come out there and they used to praise him, right? Okay, and he was a reptilian that came out of the ground. He was one of the Rel people that lived underground, and he came out of that great big tunnel there. They always used to go and see him right there, and he always went back underground because he couldn't go up to the top. They could never surface. So they always manipulate the population, and that's where the first Nordic began. So when you go into the Bible and you realise that going back in the oldest Bible in the world, right, it tells us that Thor is Baal, Satan. And he started the Western civilization that's represented in Adam and Eve and the two sons, right, Cain and Abel. You know, Abel's born from Adam and Eve, man and woman. But Cain was born from the serpent, from one of the realms. That's when they talk about the giants, right? They were really the fallen angels, right? They were really the reptilians, right? They grabbed the women because they loved them with their long hair, and they artificially inseminated them, and they gave birth to giants, right? Okay, do you understand that? And Thor was the first thunder god. The thunder god is the first giant who looked like a Sasquatch, no differently. Long red hair, completely bushish, and looked like a Sasquatch, and he was a giant. Okay, and he had a sixth sense that was completely different, just like the Sasquatches today, no differently. If you understand that Gilgamesh, right, Nimrod had the same look, so did Osiris, right? They were always big, jeery, dark ginger hair and giants, and all hairy everywhere like the Sasquatches because of the same race, right? And they didn't follow their forefathers' footsteps. They lived on top of the planet. But their forefathers lived underneath, right? And they never followed their forefathers' footsteps because they went back to nature and became very wise how to use nature and became plant eaters and lived by their natural environments by the vineyard rule equally, and two similar commandments. That's a Sasquatch. They always live by nature and communicate with nature and have their sixth sense far more powerful than us and live to be over 1,000 years old. The Aborigines, that's their ancestors. They know the whole stories, right? That's why we've got 5 meters skeletons coming out of Australia, because we lie about everything. But they know they are the ancestors, right? And are those people, right, that was created from the fallen angels. And they say white man crazy, right? Sasquatch is a white man that's very hairy. They're not black, right? And white man was always crazy with crazy gods. And we know that in every biblical story that's been removed from the Bibles. You see, King James is King James Rockefeller's Bible, created 640 years ago. But what do you know about the Ethiopian Bible and the books of Enoch? That's all removed. 300 books. What was Enoch? He was black. What did he say about Noah? What did he say about them? They were white men. They were crazy. And they were completely inverted and always wanted to take control of everything. Who was Nimrod? Nimrod was the grandson of Noah, wasn't he? What about Noah? Who was he? Well, he's a Netherland. He wasn't the one neither. He failed as well. He was a Netherland. He was a Netherland because he was born white with blue shining eyes and white hair. Okay? And his grandson was Nimrod. Right? That's a fact, right? So how could he have a grandson or a son on the boat? He built the boat when he's 600 years old, for God's sake. Or 500 or 600 years old. It took him 100 years. How old do you think his grandson was by then? And the movie tells you that he took his sons and kids on the board as if they were 18-year-olds. Are you kidding me? His grandson was Nimrod, right? Because he was a Netherland, just like his grandfather and father was. That's what people don't understand, because they don't understand jack shit about life. Well, that's all in the right Bibles. When you read the right Bibles, that the white Western civilization are the aggressive ones, the inverted ones, that's taking over the whole world today. You know what I mean? Because all the Aboriginals all over the world, they always live by the vineyard rule equally. That's what the Australian Aborigines live by. They live by the vineyard rule equally, and then communication with nature fends for them. And they're far advanced. They come from a civilization like us. They tell that story perfectly, and we now got the evidence that they came from the white civilization many years ago, and they went back to nature to fend for themselves. And that's what's recorded in the Freemason documents and the New World Order. The same thing, to go back to nature to fend for yourself, the same as the Bible, because good and evil always work together. Do you know that? It's the real people underground that doesn't work with us. So Illuminati's working with the real people now. They all have the same end plan. Everyone thinks they're working for the same God. Well, maybe they are. Maybe they are working for the same God. Maybe the same God is the same God of all. You ever thought of that? Because every single thing has the same end results, and there are people that are inverted here that are not humans. And we shouldn't concern ourselves about them, right? But we don't know that. Well, most of them have parasites all over the world. That's a proven fact, right? And that's proven and backed up with the most concrete evidence in the last video with the internet system. Everyone's glued to the internet and using reverse psychology in 5 senses, and that's Ralph's tools, the Ralph Society. The Freemasons don't even use them. They use their instincts and outside influence on their reality like we do. That's why they have the same end plans. And you know what? They might seem like the evil, but they don't like the real people. And they don't like the ones that are inverted, that's got the parasites in them neither, because they're not human. Let me tell you something about God. God came down with the angels to men in cloth. Often he came down to men in cloth, right? The man in cloth. That's in the oldest Bible in the world. But you don't know much about this, do you? Well, God came down and he hacked people to pieces, and some of them were kids are little babies. Why? Because they're created from sex. And anyone's created from sex is negativity. Okay, where you come to conclusion with reason when you have sex, and then you have a child that's inverted, right? Just like you are, and they follow their forefathers' footsteps, and that's the majority of the Western population, because they all use the same tools, the inverted tools. They don't use the natural environment whatsoever, and they don't use their natural magnetic motor skills. It's very simple. Everyone's inverted because they're possessed by the devil, and that's the Rel, right? The Rel parasite that's in everybody. And you know that now. I've given you all the information, and you can't get away from this. You can only do something about it, and that's think outside the mind to go back to the image you created in. And you know what that image is? The Australian Aboriginals, man, the Sasquatch, to fend for yourself in nature. And that's the end plan for the Freemasons on a 300-year structure plan. And you think everything about modern technology in the AI world, right, is fast forward? That's the Rel people, man. That's the fallen angels, right? That teaches you to use this system, right? Which Babylon did. Greed, power, temptation, money, material things, and materialistic things. Modern technology, modern gadgets with images, and that's what you're pulverized into and creating the dopamine so much you get so stoned that you're addicted to this now. And you can't get off social media platform. You're addicted to it, right? You can't get off the screen. You're addicted to it. Every person in the world is using the screens. 78% use it minimum 3 hours a day. And they have a content of a dopamine that makes them a cocaine addict, right? With over moderation. You know, dopamines are great for you when it's used in moderation and you activate it in the right times. But not to be sitting there dormant and stupid all day with a high technology and high education and a high IQ that makes you damn good at what you do, but not intelligent, because your whole situation and every decision you make comes to your conclusion with reasoning. What is that? That's the reverse psychology. To come to a conclusion with reasoning, that's because you don't have faith in your biological system to feel the difference between right, wrong, good, and evil. But everyone that uses their sixth sense, like the Sasquatch and the Aboriginals, they're the spiritual connector that has an outside influence that can move 10 times faster than you can and has all those superhuman abilities and read the molecules. And they don't want nothing to do with the system that you love so much that controls you in every aspect of your life. And you depend on it so much because you are the inverted, you are the reptilians, and you have a parasite inside you that controls you, right? The body snatcher, and they control everything you do. You don't think we know that? There's only a handful of people here that are human. It's a proven fact. 93% aren't human. Proven fact. Right? Most of you are so inverted, you've got no idea. But that's why I'm telling you these things. You have parasites inside you. Your body cells are corruption, cursing, illusion. Go and get a DNA test done at Unifed. Unifed, ES systems, they're set up for both good and evil. They work together to repair DNA and immune systems. They work together, right? Isn't that right? They all work together in all these programs, right? You see, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, what's so hard to fathom about this and so hard to wrap your mind around, I'm not telling you to follow them because they're still inverted, right? They're still doing the wrong thing to get there, but they all have the same end plan. To go back to nature, to fend for yourself. It's written on documents in Australia that's leading the New World Order into this, right? That's why the bank can move $2.3 billion down there. That's why 7 million people bought property down there, and that's where the elect and the elite are going. That's why they deceive you the flat earth theory so much, because they're building in the dry valleys. And they've been building there for more than 20 years. And they're setting up a whole new civilization down there, right, to set up with the Rels. And they have the city undergrounds down there. You're not aware of these things because you don't know any better. But believe me, the world's going underground in a pole shift. You don't believe that? Wait and see what happens. It's already shifting now. They know that. The pole shift is already going into a tilt. And it's going to go into a massive tilt and wipe out most of the population. That's why the militaries are going underground with all these tunnels all over the world and moving 600-ton food in there every day. They know that the Great Flood's going to completely turn the planet upside down like it did in the Easter Islands. And the Aborigines know this. They know every catalysm event and how it's going to turn. That's how they got the information. That's why these things can be seen, a great new flood coming. And the parasitic people that's going into massive extinction, you don't even know that. Listen, when you have parasites inside you and you can't change your way of life, then you go into reincarnation, to being stuck there for 1,000 years. Because they're putting you into that. With all these new belief systems you've got all over the world and all this confusion and frustration, they don't care what you're doing as long as you don't break free from amnesia and discover who you are. And when you don't do that, you're stuck in a reincarnation trap and you'll be there for 1,000 years. How many people say they live in their own truth today? Thousands, right? Thousands all over the world, especially all the new beliefs. They believe in their own truth. Well, they're welcome to that because they got free will and took it back into their hands. You see, everyone's into free will, right? What did God warn you about free will of Babylon? If you don't follow your moral values in the right place and you don't do the righteous thing by using your organic motor skills, right, and you take free will into your hands, you're using every single thing forbidden from Babylon and everything in free will that you love so much, and you polarize so much that you create too much endorphins, and you can't create the method with adrenaline. You can't even create those molecules anymore. So what you have to understand right now is the parasitic world right? It's been polarized so much, they don't even know what their natural organic molecules are. They can't even compare themselves to human beings to 200 years ago. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? They all died between 60, 70 and 80 if they get it to that far. But when you can use your natural organic molecules, you live to be 1,000 years old like a Sasquatch. And like the Australian Aborigines forefathers did only a few years ago. I've met people more than 160 years old. You don't even believe in them because you're inverted. And you do all the wrong things because you're controlled by the system of Babylon in the parasites again, and you're controlled by the screen. Mm-hmm. You're controlled by the screen. And you don't have a life, and you're disconnected from nature and all the things you're in harmony with, including genuine loyalty, honor, respect, moral rules, inspiration, encouragement. They're the only tools you need. They guide you in everything in life. But you're so disconnected, you don't understand yourself anymore. You don't even know who you are. So they keep entertaining you and distracting you with so many new belief systems. And guess what people are saying all over the world? We live in the now moment, right? We live in the now moment. What does that make you do? It doesn't make you understand your past, where you create all the greatest moments that you treasure the most, you learn from, where your moral values in a balance, where you're balanced with yourself and you've got to grip yourself so you can see the future, right? Not the now moment, not to live in a bubble in the fifth dimension with light, power, deceiving and demonic. That's what people are using all over the world, and that's what you're told not to use. The Babylonian beast system that deceives you so much with light, power, deceiving and demonic, with free energy, with power, light and energy, with frequencies, with quantum mechanics. You don't need to use any of that shit. That creates the parasites. By creating endorphins and thinking that you're something special, when you come to a conclusion with reasoning on every Western document in the world, that's how you think on reverse psychology with a high IQ. That makes you damn good at what you do, but in fact not intelligent. You're going to use the inverted tools, and you're all using the inverted tools and thinking you're moving forward all the time with more technology, more thinking, more critical thinking, and the voice in the mind controls you, the parasite. And you don't even believe in that. Well, you'll never return back to your primal state when you don't believe in it, but when you have amnesia, you don't know. You don't know who you are, where you come from, what the meaning of life is, no matter how much you come outside your mouth. You haven't broke free from anything. You're living in a bubble, right? So I want to explain something to you, right? Very carefully. You live in the now moment. You don't know your history, you don't know your forefathers' tools, and you don't know the future, you can't see it. You can't create the right domino effect because whenever you make a decision, you're not looking into the future, what effect that has, because your words are wrong. They're all inverted. The Aborigines know that. White man crazy. White man God's crazy. And you know what? It's true. Because they come from this civilization and they went back to the tree of life to live by the vineyard rule equally and to love one another, bitterness, burdens, and they always lived like that. And we call them savages. We tell the world that, oh, those that think with their instincts are thinking with their old ancestry savage tools. And you have to think with reasoning on reverse psychology with a high IQ. And that's the biggest lie ever told in human history. The biggest, greatest manipulation in human psychology. Psychology is not real, right? Stress, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, paranoia is not real. But you believe it is, that's why you suffer it. And then you take drugs to numb yourself because you can't cope. When you get off social media platform, you can't cope. You can only cope on the screen because you create endorphins and get stoned and grow a lot of confidence when you talk all day. But when you get off there, you can't even make friends, you can't even connect, right? You're completely disconnected from life, nature, and all the things you're in harmony with. You're disconnected from family, loved ones, and friends. So not only can't you love thy neighbour, you can't love thy enemy, that's for sure. You can't even love thy neighbour, you can't even love your family anymore. You can't even love your friends anymore. You conquer and divide every day with selfish, egotistic, judgmental, competitive behaviour, and that's every inverted tool that you use because your whole civilization is going fast track into nowhere but its own extinction, and no one has enough time in the day. But the Aborigines live in a time where time stands still, life pursues. Well, you're past 7 times faster than you are, right, with a myth effect. Yet we live in a time where time stands still, life pursues. Well, you're fast track into nowhere and you haven't got enough hours in the day because you're dormant and stupid and creating dopamines. We create the myth effect, and that's the Christ oil, right? The Christ oil is the adrenochrome that dies inside you between 7 and 15. But you create it from 0 to 7, and we create it all the time because we go back to our childhood and think outside the mind and recreate it and break free from amnesia. So we don't have any parasites control us anymore because we can cure that, and we can beat the death experience when you stick your head out the cave and stick your head at the light at the end of the tunnel and stop going through the tunnel of all the rabbit holes that entertains you so much. That's the time you're in, buddy, right? And that's what you have to wake up to. A lot of things around here, right? How they inverted everything into so the parasites taking over every single person in the world, and every person in the world's got 7,000 defective genes. And we have an immune system 27 times more powerful than vaccination, and 27's a sign. I give it to you over and over and over. 27's a sign. The Holy Spirit and the divine light, when you have that in the right frequency, when you have your priorities in the right place, When your principality's in the right place, you have the power of sevenfold wisdom and knowledge with an immune system 27 times more powerful than a vaccination, right? So you don't need to worry about parasites, do you? Because you go through that effect, right? You go into another dimension with dimensional thinking and using the outside influence of your reality to change the circumstance around here. We change the atmosphere to bring heaven on earth, and we create the atmosphere so the rest of the world goes into massive extinction. Did you know that? They know that. They're just taking souls into a reincarnation trap. That's what the body snatchers do. They take the souls and put it out of their body so they can't get out of here, and then they can re-resurrect them, and they're going to wish they were dead for 1,000 years, believe me, because they believe in their own truth and fell into all that new deception with Galaxy Federation, the fallen angels, and they follow every one of those footsteps in the little bubble with their own truth. They're living their own little free will, right? And when they do that, what do they say? We live in the now moment. So they don't live in the past or the future, do they? They don't understand nothing about time where time stands still, because they live in a timeline of deception for 700 years where time stands still and falls for them. And that's the timeline they go with when it disappears, because we're going to timeline of sevenfold wisdom and knowledge while they're going to timeline of deception because they love it so much. They all feed on deceptions, right? For endorphins and create the endorphins that creates the parasites that controls their whole belief system. The voice in the mind, soul, and sign of human extinction. Now that might be really hard, right? But we can go into evidence about this and we can go deep about this. I'm one of the most intelligent people in the world that's telling you the truth, the way that it really is, and most people can't stand it. But you know why? Because we're 10 times more advanced than you. And what do we use? We use those that you think are backwards, that are savages. We think with our indigenous tools, man. That's why we create the greatest miracles on earth. And we have the abilities that we have, right? And what do we use? We use the tools that you think are inverted, that you think are backwards, right? Because we know the future and we know the past. And we know the past is where the intelligent ones are, that could levitate stones and build the pyramids and build all sorts of extraordinary things and be in communication with nature that fends for them and feeds for them. They have an ability with free energy that you don't even understand. But you're going for the technology world with the 200 frequency of the personality that becomes a voice in your mind, and the parasites are taking over the whole world. Most people are possessed by the devil, right? And if people can't get out of this mindset, believe me, they'll never get out of this. You can see the parasites and it's going to come out all over the world. Let me tell you something about blood clots and myocarditis. What do you see? Worming. Worms getting big, thick, just like they always have. That's what you're watching, ain't it? I mean, you're not stupid, are you? You're watching the worms taking over the whole world. That's a parasite, man. The parasite's taking over the whole world, right? And that's a parasite. That's what the worms are. And they are reptilian, right? And snakes that comes from the underground. In what? In gemo food, in clones, in hybrids. They're all infested with these things. And the adrenochrome, when you don't create the adrenochrome, you don't create the molecules to go and work for together and kill the ones that go in corruption, coercion, collusion, because you create endowment effects. And endowment effects comes from the real civilization because they're all dormant and they're reptilians. And you think with the reptilian brain, I'm a reverse psychology with a high IQ, and that's the inverted. That's how you know. Every tool that they use, no matter what comes out of their mouth, you know who they are. And I know it's hard, guys, but that's why there's only a few of us left that are really humans, right? And let me tell you something, progenitor genes opening up, and some of these people are going to rise to the occasion, though, the Freemasons, they're going to be extraordinary, man, okay? And I'm saying to you, be careful and be prepared for the moment and start activating your primal state and go back to the image you're creating so you have these unbelievable powers, because we're very unique compared to the rest of the world. And all the world's inverted when they don't believe in it. They don't even have faith in their own biological genes to think in their natural motor skills. And that's what we're going back to. We're going back to nature to fend for ourselves. That's what we're doing, back to the vineyard rule equally and 2 simple commandments, because when we live by that, everything falls together perfectly, automatically, right? Love, life, and life, right? Remember that, okay? Your moral instincts, right? When they're in the right place, your principality's in the right place, God gives you the power. And when you stand in that image, you've got to use the 8 tools of righteousness, okay? Loyalty, honor, respect, moral rules, inspiration, encouragement. They are your tools. They are your power. And believe me, no weapon formed against you can prosper. I can guarantee you that. Nothing's going to prosper against Marin, because believe me, the parasite's going to come right out of her, because that's the way God works around here, right? And we have the power to overcome the parasites in such a way that most people don't understand, because they don't even believe in it. That's why they're in vain-locked denial and beyond the point of return. It's important we understand how parasites work around here, and they're embedded in our DNA through our human history, and most people don't know about it. Well, those that suffer the human condition with confusion and frustration have the parasites. Those that watch social media platform and do things all day to entertain the same BS and the same Babylonian beast with the same systems, they're the ones that have parasites, no matter what they believe in, because the voice in their mind That's ultimate sign of extinction. It's light, power, deceiving, and demonic, and will sound like it's heavenly and come across like Jesus Christ. You were told how the Antichrist would come. They'll come like God in your mind, that's Jesus Christ, and that's how he'll deceive you the most. But God said, we will come like a thief in the night, with fire coming out of our mouth, and we come from the cave of prisons, and we'll be old men of renown and knowledge. Okay, and that renown and knowledge is our indigenous behavior, because we'll be in that image like an outlaw, like a thief in the night. Don't you fucking forget that, boys.